Good evening, Aarti. Thank you for joining in. All right, okay. So let us quickly understand why we are here today and what is the kind of panel discussion are we bringing in. So thank you so much once again for joining in, and a very good evening to each and everyone who is present here. We have today a brilliant panel of distinguished personalities who will be sharing their insights on building on strong profile strategies for academic, extracurricular, and personal development for today's colloquium, and it's my immense pleasure to introduce them to you all. Our first panelist with us is Miss Vandana. Miss Vandana heads the Career Counseling Department at the Emerald Hill Heights International School, Indore. She counsels students from grade 8 through 12 and helps students discover their latent potentials in the most scientific manner. Besides, she shoulders multiple responsibilities like AP coordinator, SAP, PSAT supervisor, English language content head, and student empowerment mentor. She has been the recipient of Counselors Recognition Program 2019 by the College Board Excellence in Teaching Award by Career Launcher, and also been nominated for the Best Emerging Counselors Award for 2 consecutive years at IC3 Conference. In addition, she has been the speaker at prestigious global conferences like NACAC, WLSA, IC3, etc. Currently, Ms. Vandana has been serving as the co-chair of the Content and Research Committee, IC3 Movement at Global Engagement Committee. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Aishwarya, for the wonderful information and my introduction as well.
Thank you. Moving ahead, we have with us Ms. Shraddha Kumar, a special educator and a counselor working with over 18 years with Utpal Sangvi Global School in Mumbai. She has been actively mentoring and guiding high school students to build up a robust profile, find their calling, and also helping them build leadership skills in her role also as the moderator for a track club of junior college as well. She takes great pleasure and pride in confessing that she learns more from her students and enjoys working with them immensely. A certified career counselor from the IC3 Institute, she facilitates sessions and interaction with students and parents, both to help them make informed choices about their colleges, careers, and also just life in general. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today.
It's great being here. Thank you for having me.
Moving ahead, our third panelist we have with us is Bhavya Goyal. While Bhavya Goyal is the head counselor at Saket Education Society, she is also an ambitious, successful higher education counselor with over 10 years of experience in designing, implementing, and leading an efficient counseling team across all aspects of admissions, profile building, life skills, and operational work for students and their parents at given point from the schools of all the curricula across India and 6 other countries, including the UAE, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Canada, and the US. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Thank you for having me here.
Last but not the least, our last panelist with us is Ramya. Ms. Ramya's mission as a career counselor is to help high school students make well-informed decisions about colleges and careers based on their own skills, interests, goals, rather than own preconceived notions. In her role as Director of Future Pathways India for the International Schools Partnership, she supports the counseling functions for the group schools in India. Until recently, Ms. Ramya was the head college and career counselor at Mindler, where she set up a robust 4-year high school curriculum for career and college advising. Over the past 5 years, she has successfully guided students in obtaining offers from the top universities across the world. Ms. Ramya is also a long-time volunteer with IC3, a global movement which aims to bring counseling to every school. She is an active member of the counseling community in India, contributing actively through being on panels, hosting webinars, conducting conferences, sessions, and authoring several articles. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Last but not the least, I'll also introduce our moderator for today, Abhishek. So Abhishek is a management graduate from the University College London with successful summer credentials at London School of Economics and HAC Paris. He is dedicated mentor when it comes to guiding students to Ivy League and G5 institutes. Abhishek is also profile building experts and trains students in their journey to make it to the world's best universities. He is also a visiting faculty at Jain CMS Bangalore and Miles School of Branding and Advertising Mumbai. Thank you so much, everybody, and the stage is all yours now, Abhishek.
Great. Thank you so much, Aishwarya, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's joined us today. I know you've had a great day of learning throughout the ICCC Foundation Program. And again, a warm and very extended welcome to our panelists. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm personally looking forward to this conversation with all of you, with all your experience. Now, as we already know, the theme behind this conversation around profile building, because we all work with so many students, I personally realized that one of the most misused terms in India is profile building. A, because half of us don't understand it, and B, so many of us keep advocating it without understanding its true sense. So to start this conversation, I would just like to get everybody's very initial perspective on what exactly is profile building in your reference, so that our audience understands why are we talking about it and what it actually means. Ms. Vandana, would you like to go first?
Sure. So thank you for having me here, and I'm happy to be here talking about my experiences and my perspectives, as well as I'm eagerly looking forward to learning from great panelists. So if you ask me my definition of profile and how I guide my kids is, the very first thing I tell them is that profile is not a document where you just have to fill the check boxes. It is very, very much related to your own character building as well. So relating to your character, you need to reflect on what all things are very, very prominent, dominant, and very much inherent in you that you feel must be documented. Secondly, then I would guide them back to all the experiences that they have so far, and we help them discover what are the hidden talents, what are the abilities that could be channelized more fruitfully through some hands-on projects outside of the classroom. So then from there, our conversation begins. We help them discover those things through individual counseling and then put them into clubs, respective clubs. Maybe we will ask them to take some great Olympiads, subject-wise Olympiads, not necessarily math or science, but it could even be climate science Olympiad. It could even be social science Olympiad or a biology Olympiad or even a geography Olympiad. Then we would also see if the student is too much academically bent toward mathematics or so, we would really want to expose them to great platforms, advanced level platforms like CEMC by University of Waterloo, or even AMC, which is the American Math competition. So these are some ways where we discover their talents and put them into activities. So here we talk about like how your profile as a document and how your personality and character, they are actually reversible equation kind of a thing, where when you are there in person and your document is not there, then your personality and your experiences and your conversations are talking about what will come in your document. But on the contrary, in case you are not available and your document is there, then the person should be able to visualize that, okay, through this, I am expecting this kind of personality in front of me. So that's what is personality for me. So definitely looking forward to the perspectives of great colleagues here.
I love the fact that you mentioned it's a reversible equation, because a lot of us don't understand it. So I really like that point. Thank you so much, Ms. Vandana. Ramya, would you like to go next?
Sure. So thank you also for having me. I've known Vandana and Shraddha for a while now, and these are conversations we have constantly. I think very clearly, I think all of us will reiterate what Vandana said, that it is not a checkbox, right? I think many times, excuse me, especially when students are looking to apply abroad, they think, oh, I have to have one volunteer activity, one, extracurricular that's like creative, one research project. And somewhere I feel like a lot of consultants also kind of sort of just keep emphasizing it in a way that generates misunderstanding. So Vandana explained very nicely what it is, right? I just want to sort of focus a bit on why this whole concept came about and why it's important, right? So if you look at it in the past, because holistic admissions was something that was practiced mainly by US universities, right? UK cares about more academic related extracurriculars. India, it was never an issue till the last decade or so, when the new age universities have started more holistic admissions process. But the reason why a place like the US also emphasizes the profile is, if you think about it, students, yes, you primarily go to the university to study, but for the most part, it is a residential campus experience, right? And so you learn not just from the classroom, but you are learning through your interactions with your peers in a lot of settings outside the classroom as well. And so the idea is, who are you when you're put together with inside a community? Like, what are you bringing to the community? And also, I was reading this somewhere, the way it came about also is, if you look at like the US universities do a lot of alumni studies and things like that, right? And often the success of somebody 20 years into their profession is correlated with, how effective they were as a contributor to their campus community, which is why working backwards, that became a metric in addition to your academics in terms of in evaluating candidates. And so the profile really helps universities understand who you are going to be once you come on their campus community. Are you going to be a contributor? Are you going to be someone that your peers learn from? Then that reflects on who you're going to be in an office or a work community, right? Are you the kind of person who is going to be an entrepreneur, who's going to take the initiative to build new companies, to be successful in your career? And so I think it's a way of, it's who you are is an indication of who you will be. And so that's why the profile is an important way to show your personality beyond your academics and your grades.
That's very well put, because I think that also helps you figure out what you want to do. The why of it is equally important. So thank you so much for elaborating on that as well. Bhavya, would love your opinion as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with Ramya, but I'll just like to go back to what Ms. Vandana said. I think for me, in my experience, profile building has been a significant part of helping students understand themselves. I think self-awareness, and we talk about it a lot with the students. And I think irrespective of what college or what program they want to go to, nowadays, the profile building aspect, the exploration, helping build self-confidence, their own self-esteem, it has become extremely important that each student actually keeps on doing different things, especially between 8 to 12 standard, because that is where I've seen the students tend to start withdrawing because of the academic pressure. So I think the balance between academics and extracurricular activities is really essential, because 8 to 12 standard, it's a very different time for the kids. Adolescents, it's pretty serious time. They tend to get serious. They get into all sorts of peer pressure. So I feel that is a very, very important time, and profile building sort of helps them, keep in line with their confidence, make some friendships, meet people, develop a lot of confidence in different things, and identify the things that they're good at, they're possibly not want to do, and the things that obviously they want to do at a college level.
You raised a very important point about balance, and I would like to touch upon this later in the conversation. So I made a note of that. Ms. Shraddha.
Yeah, hi again. Thanks for having me. Everyone's speaking about profile, and I know your question was what exactly is profile building, but I'd rather touch upon what it is not, because I think it's, so much has been spoken about profile building, and now because it's this new buzzword, everyone's talking about it, but no one really seems to know exactly why you need to build a profile or what it really is. So very often I have students at grade, 11, all of a sudden they've heard that they have to build up their profile, and that's what colleges are looking for, or that's what's going to, feature on their application. And then that's when they do like a myriad of, activities, and, they just want to be everywhere. They want to do a little bit, like Ramya pointed out also, they want to do a little bit of community work. They want to do an Olympiad. They want to be a part of a club. They want to do a little bit of social service, so they just want to do all of that to build up their profile. But what they essentially need to understand is that it's not about gathering certificates, because first of all, universities don't ask for certificates. They're not uploaded anywhere on your application. So that is something that students need to know. A lot of them don't know it, and they just go around collecting certificates by the dozens when it's not really what's needed. It's more about the depth of what you do rather than the width. And that is something that really needs to be told. A profile is about, building up your competencies or showing your competencies in a particular area, and especially the area that you want to sort of move ahead with or you want to pursue. So, it doesn't make sense doing, being part of a science club when you want to do something in the humanities, I mean, it's obviously going to help, but then if that's going to take away the attention from what you really want to do, then it's really no point. So look at that. It should be very focused profile building. So, building up your strengths and building, doing classes and courses in what you want to do rather than just doing a million things that people around you are doing, because that's not what you are. So, yeah, that's just.
No, I think that's a very important point of view because people don't understand. In fact, you mentioned certificates. I hate the fact when kids go to NGs and take photographs, like millions of them, and keep uploading them where then there's no place to be uploaded. And I think it's very inhumane to do that, to be honest. But yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up as well. To get into a little more specific questions, Ramya, I would like to ask you first. You've held a role of a school counselor for a long time and you work with so many kids. I think a lot of students don't understand that academic achievements also play a major role. Can you highlight a little bit on that what role does academic achievement play in building a profile as well?
Well, I mean, your traditional school academics accounts for the majority of your evaluation, regardless of which part of the world you apply to, right? So often kids will think that, especially for some place like the US, which has holistic admissions, that stellar extracurriculars can somehow make up for weak academics, but that's really not true. I mean, unless you're really like a recruited athlete where you're recruited, your evaluation process happens in a very different way outside of the system. Even then you have to meet the basic parameters required for academic success, right? In terms of, I think what you're asking is maybe how the two overlap, right? Because
Yes.
you have your traditional, I mean,
Correct.
we as counselors, and this is because our audience is all counselors and people who are hoping to be counselors, you have to drill it in that there is no substitute for traditional academic success. Children have to do well in their grades. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's a holistic evaluation, competitive exam, whatever it is, you've got to do well in your academics, right? As well as you can. Not everybody, you can't take a B student and push them into an A+ student. But I think where things can help, because often it becomes like an academics or extracurriculars, but I think Vandana had mentioned this when she brought up some of those Olympiads and competitions. There are academic extracurriculars, right? So if you take a place like a system like the UK, which looks at what we call supercurriculars, which are academic related extracurriculars, doing some of those academic extracurriculars can help with your school academics and vice versa. So if you take up a project, for example, looking at recessions or something specific to economics, and you work with your school, your economics teacher, that can benefit in helping you solidify your understanding of the things that you're learning in school. So it can help your academics while also, doing this research project that works as an extracurricular. And similarly with, Olympiad preparations often help students with their academics. I hope that answered the question. It was
Absolutely.
a slightly vague question, so apologies. But
No, I think Ramya, you hit the spot because that is the point. Because if I'm looking at a Canada or a UK, or even Singapore, which are very highly academic-driven countries, that's very important for them to understand. And I think one important point you highlighted, I can be playing a sport at a national level, I can be a Trinity grade 8 certified, but if I don't have the scores, I don't have the scores. I can't make up for it, right? So very important part. Thank you so much. Bhavya, I would love your opinion on the fact, because you've again been in the space for a while. I think one thing is building a profile, but the biggest confusion is how do we find out activities that work for us? So what suggestions do you have for students to align their interest with the activities they want to do that can work very well for them?
So I think I personally believe it depends. Each student has their own journey. For a student, who has had enough opportunities, I feel schools seem to be doing a great job, especially when it comes to, opportunities till 7th, 8th standard. If a student has been exploring enough activities, extracurricular activities till 8th standard, I feel the journey actually begins in 9th standard, when you start specifically defining what you like and what you don't like. But for someone who hasn't really had the exposure even in the early years of schooling. I feel that 9th and 10th standard can be sort of the time when they can start exploring whether it is, a musical instrument, whether it is, an academic activity, the Olympiads and things the schools offer, or whether it's being part of the school's clubs and other activities that you can find outside. I believe the way of finding activities can be in so many different ways, right? We all, kids these days, have access to technology, internet. We all know how to Google. I feel the teachers and the mentors, the school counselors are doing a fantastic job. They have access to a lot of opportunities, and I think it's just a question of students reaching out to them and asking for opportunities. And I think the counselors are looking forward to such students who can actually reach out to them and want to participate. Other than that, I feel extracurricular opportunities, there's so many even private organizations, creating such tools and organizations. I feel the internship opportunity at Mindler was fantastic. And I loved that for my students, and I shared it with all my students. So I feel there's so many opportunities these days when it comes to profile building, and so many private organizations also understanding the relevance of it. So it's just about the student and each individual student's, prioritization and what they really need, preference, what is their comfort zone. And according to that, I think they can find different opportunities.
I think that works very well, but the word I'll take away from this is exploration. I think they have to spend time doing that. And the earlier they get into the system of exploring, at least I figure out what doesn't work for me or what does. So that will be a good suggestion. Thank you so much. Ms. Shraddha, what I want to ask, I think we were talking about this earlier. Community service is such a misunderstood thing because we are told that, listen, if you have to go to a US university, you have to be part of community service. But can you actually give your perspective? How important is it? And what and how can a student actually work towards the community?
So basically, community service is about actually making a difference. It's not just about being part of a club and, saying that I went for beach cleaning, or, we volunteered at, at an old age home. It's not a one-off thing. Anything that you do has to have some sort of purpose. And that, I think, is something that students need to understand. So when they say that we did community service, it has to show what difference they made. And it's not that they just went once and then they were done with it. What have you done to actually have you initiated a project there, or have you, been there on a weekly basis? Have you made a difference in the lives of the people that you were trying to help? Or was it just one random beach clean drive and then nothing was done after that, So it's basically about showing that you've made an actual difference to the community that you're reaching out to, So I think that is something that they need to keep in mind. It's not just about having a certificate that I have been part of this organization or this NGO or this club, because that really doesn't show anything. In fact, if I was the admissions officer, it would be detrimental to their application, because then I just realized that this person has just done it for the heck of it and hasn't really, given it a thought or actually made any sort of, difference. So that is something that they need to understand. Also, just one thing that I'd like to add on, if I may, to what, to the question you asked, Ramya, about the importance of academics. I know I'm just, going back to that, but I just want to say this one thing, that, students need to understand that having a good GPA is going to get them that one foot in the door. Only the extracurriculars is going to get the other foot in. But if you don't have your GPA, your first foot is not going to enter the door. So it's very, very important to have an extremely, good GPA. And that is something that students need to understand. If your scores aren't good, no matter, what extracurriculars you have or what community service you do, it's really not going to mean. That's only the second step that the admissions officers are going to look at. So yeah, that was my 2 bits on the community service bit also.
No, I think that's a very important bit, because the impact factor people don't understand. Also, it's about the quality of work. It shouldn't be like I'm doing a webinar or a workshop for 100 kids and nobody learns out of it. I'd rather support one kid. And I'm glad you went back to the point about academics. I always say this, that, it's literally like going to a restaurant and not meeting the dress code. You won't get food to eat. So academics is exactly like this. They won't let you enter. So the conversation ends right away. So thank you so much. Ms.
Actually, Abhishek, just on the community, I just wanted to add one thing to all the lovely points that Shraddha mentioned. The also community doesn't always mean some external community that you go and do like charity work for, right? Your school community is a community too. So like in a school like mine, we offer kids a lot of opportunities informally. Like, when we have an event, kids can they can be part of the organizing committee, and so if you're involved in your school community, I've had kids have amazing success at top US universities and all who just didn't do much outside, but was so involved in the school community. They've been there from K through 12. And so they have really anything that they've put there, they've volunteered for everything. They've had positions, and that is community involvement too, right? And community doesn't mean size also. I've had kids who just tutored 1 or 2 kids to great success. Like some kid joined in the middle of 10th grade and had to catch up on 1 year's portion in 9th. And this other kid in 11th grade, she tutored that kid to, and then finally the student got like an A-star in IGCSE economics. And that is community service too, right? So
I completely agree. In fact, some schools, a lot of schools in the metropolitan cities would have a lot of these clubs and things like that, but not all schools would have things like that. But community service can start from your own home. It could start with, working with your maid's child. Or I remember during the lockdown, we had students who couldn't go out and do active community service. So they came up with the idea that, because everything was cashless, and the generic population, the geriatric population couldn't step out of their houses and go to stores to buy their groceries because of the lockdown and things like that. They decided to make a tutorial in Hindi for the elderly people in their building and their locality on how to use GPay. So how to set up your GPay account and things like that. So it was something as simple as that. They didn't need to step out of their houses. They didn't need to invest a lot of time in going somewhere, but they still did something that made a difference, So it can start with your home, your building, your neighbors, just like Ramya said.
No, I think that's a very important suggestion. I think this reminds me, I had a kid from Kanpur last year who, in the pandemic again, started teaching his grandparents and their friends how to use social media and Zoom so that they can connect with people easily sitting at home. Like that was a wonderful act, right? You don't have to even step outside. So it just starts with the intention to help. No, but thank you so much for those valuable inputs. Now, Ms. Vandana, we are talking about such interesting things about profile and what we can do. The challenge becomes balance. What suggestions do you have for students? How do they strike a balance while they're building their profile? Because I know they have very heavy schedules.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. And I will speak from my experiences, what I do for myself, because at times even I get overwhelmed with so much of work. The first and the very important thing for we as educators to follow ourselves and also teach our students to follow is the mindfulness. Be in the moment. When you are working, just work and don't think of anything so that the productivity leverages and the learning outcomes are more. So this way, they are not taking forward any other work for the next. So this is one thing that we follow. And we really emphasize on that when you are onto your project, then be immersed into the project. Then the second thing that I really emphasize is the art of prioritizing, so that nothing is affected. If there are exams, please, your priority has to be exams. If exams are over, it's a weekend, some holidays, let's do something productive as well as fun and learning, which not only adds to the profile, but adds to our learning more, hands-on projects. So second is the art of prioritizing. Something that I really feel is very important for our kids to do is goal setting. Now, goal setting is also not only about making to-do lists, but making to-do lists looking at the broader picture. What do I want to attain in the entire year? And from there, let's take the back steps and see what is my immediate step. So every day, daily to-do list, weekly to-do list, monthly to-do list, and then yearly will automatically happen if we follow these. So this is something which may sound overwhelming, but then we have devised those cards where we have timelines, and this is helping the kids to some great extent. And after this, I also tell them, see kids, ultimately it's life and we have to enjoy also. So when you're making your to-do lists, also see that there is some recreation in your list so that it's not a pressure, but a joy. So then we bring that Robin Sharma's rule, 8 into 8 into 8, like 8 hours of work and then 8 hours of fun and 8 hours of proper sleep. So this is something that really works very well. Long for the same concept. Similarly, we would also ask them to revise within 1 or 2 days so that it becomes strong in your memory. The psychology, it's a proven psychological technique. So these are really some of those things that I would emphasize to manage the balance and yet be productive in both the areas.
No, ma'am, I think you touched upon most crucial points. I love the fact that you mentioned mindfulness and prioritization because we overlook these. And end of the day, be it a student or a working professional, everybody has same challenges and it's difficult to manage everything. And I think we should always work towards a break. A lot of people say that, so that works very well. For those of you who are saying in the chat box they can't hear, I can promise you everybody's loud and clear. So I think you can rejoin. There might be technical error from your end. So please try and rejoin and it should work for you. It can be a Zoom error. Now, this question I'm opening to all 4 of you. I know building a profile is one thing, but what I've seen a lot of students struggle with is how to document that and present it to universities, right? Cooking food is one thing and presenting is a whole different challenge altogether. So what are the few suggestions you have for students who might be in the senior years of high school, and how can they present and compile that profile in a better way in terms of documentation, right? Ramya, would you like to start?
Sure. So one thing I tell my kids is, and I think especially with places like the US, is what is your story, right? You have done all this. Preferably you thought of some sort of a story, an overarching theme to your, see, at the end of the day, I mean, I tell them it's more like you are trying to market yourself on paper, right? And if you think of it, so what are the components that the admissions officer is reading that they're evaluating you on, right? There's your academic grades, there is your list of activities, which are often very short and succinct. And then there's your essays. And then, of course, your school recommendation letters and so on. But together, what is all of it like? Does it tell a good story, right? Because there are, honestly, like this year, I was an admissions reader for a pretty prestigious university, a seasonal admissions reader. And I read really hundreds of applications and they all start to meld into each other. Like a few of them float to the top and remain memorable. And I think that's what you want to aim for. Maybe not the 1% uniqueness, but the 25% uniqueness. And a lot of it comes from, making sure that all the aspects of your application work well together. So your activities list, so one way is, for example, your activities list, prioritize it in a way where your most significant, I mean, our natural inclination is to put our most significant, like, oh, I won the Olympiad, but, maybe that's not what was most meaningful to you in terms of what you did. Maybe it was the tutoring that you did or something else, right? So learn to prioritize in a way that tells your story. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if your story is, okay, I am someone who cares deeply about the environment and, I want to use my tech skills to make the environment better. Or I am someone who really is passionate about improving society through educational policy. And so, I'm going to use my work studying economics to, go into policy and things like that. So then what will you highlight, right? You will highlight the things where you said you've done something with education in your profile. You have done something with economics in your profile or policy, and then you will use those to highlight those activities and then use your essays to tell that story, right? That not just that, okay, I did the economics Olympiad or I tutored a kid, but why did I do that, right? I did that because I truly care about this, because my goal in life is to improve education, to make it accessible to millions. And so I think it's really important to have a story. And then once you have that story that you want to tell, or what your unique selling point is as a person, what your purpose is, then I think somewhere naturally your activities list, will, you will find a way to project those activities that are most support that story. if that makes sense. And this is, by the way, an exercise that I tell kids in 9th grade, that when you start thinking of profile building, you were asked a question earlier, right? Like, how do you figure out what activities to go for? And to Bhavya's point, which was very valid, that yes, some of it is exploration, but maybe at some point, it is good to focus on those few things that tell your story. And finding a story is not that easy. That's the challenge, right? You have to figure out, and that's where we come in, mentors, educators, counselors, that we have to really sit with the student and understand that, at least for now, what their story is. The story will change. We all know that. I'm in my 3rd story in my life. So, it will change. This is not a story you're writing for the next 50 years of your life, but something that you're, in the next 10 years, in the next decade, like, what do you want to be? And so I hope broadly, I'm sure others have. I'd love to hear other perspectives. This is what I tell the kids.
No, in fact, the next question I'm going to ask is about the role of mentors. So thank you for aligning to that. Bhavya, please, would love to hear your opinion.
So I think I'll just, completely agreeing to what Ramya said about, how to present information on your extracurriculars. I think I have just gone back and I'd love to hear what the other panelists have to think about. I've tried to tackle this problem in a very different way. I've sort of, coming from a CBSE school, I've made it mandatory for all the life skills teachers of our school to sort of, we've created our own simple brag sheet, which I'm sure many of the counselors are already following. And we've sort of made it a habit every quarter to make sure that all the students are filling up that brag sheet. And, trust me, when I say this, in the last academic year, it has been so helpful because it is not only, help us teach the students how to start thinking about extracurriculars in a different way, but the ones who were not interested in doing extracurriculars, profile building, they've actually sort of started feeling under the peer pressure. And we're trying to build a positive, impact of the peer pressure this way, that they started actually coming to their teachers, the counselors, and asking about the extracurriculars because they feel that they are not doing enough and the others are. So we started doing the small activity because I know as a counselor dealing, I'm sure Ramya faces this all the time and all of us faces all the time, sitting with students one-on-one, or when the student gets in 11th standard and 12th standard, and helping them, figure out their story based on the activities and the profile building stuff they've done. I think it becomes sort of challenging, and we are also not able to do justice. And that is when I, as a counselor, sometimes face the challenge of students being completely honest about the things that they've really done and knowing exactly what they're putting in their application. Which is why I feel, if at an early stage we sort of start teaching them how to do exactly what Ramya was saying and making them understand the relevance of it, some more creative ways, I think that will be very good. But yeah, I think that was one of the way, as a mentor, as a counselor, I've tried to handle that problem at my school. But other than that, I think it is an ongoing process. We constantly have conversations, regular conversation with each individually student. As counselors, we always know our student, and I think the experiences that we always have creative ways of helping students find new opportunities. So sitting down with each student individually or in groups always helps, and telling them the kind of things that they can do and how they can actually talk about each activity, how each activity has actually helped them, or what they've learned, good experience, bad experience. This sort of, actually, I think it's a regular process. And this way, I think the mentors and the guidance and even the teachers are able to really help the students a lot.
Thank you so much for that, Bhavya. I definitely want to address the role of mentors, because getting an outside view and from people who are learned is definitely important. But thank you so much for bringing that up. Ms. Shraddha?
I echo Bhavya and Ramya's sentiments, and completely agree with what they said. It is extremely important, and as a mentor, I think where we feature is to sort of guide them to do the right thing at the right time. Also, students need to be told to start filling in. I mean, even we follow the brag sheet. We have a brag sheet as well, but very often students sit at grade 12 level when it's time for applications to fill up the brag sheet. So what happens is then they need to, there are so many things that they've probably done that they've even forgotten, and then that doesn't feature on their brag sheet. So start early, start from grade 9, ideally, like Vandana said. and every little thing that you do, just put it down there. You don't know when what's going to come handy. So, and of course, we can't rely on memory alone all the time. So, you may have done something that could be important, but, you've forgotten to put it down in your application. So just have it all down right from the start, put it all there. Another thing is it's very, very important to focus on language. I can't stress this enough. Students do so much, they want to convey so much, but very often because of, their poor language skills, they're not able to, put it across as convincingly as it should be, put across. And we all know that your personal statement or your essay is something that can make or break your application. It's something that's going to really either impress the admissions counselor, or, it's going to sort of hinder your application. So I think it's very, very important to also learn, good language skills, learn how to put it down properly. We as mentors need to guide students to do that. If you need to take up some classes, you need to take up some, personality development workshops, some language classes, things like that. Do it, because that's really, really important. A lot of colleges also have interviews, and there again, your application may be exemplary, your academics may be all A stars, or great marks and things like that, but then if you're not able to again impress them in the interview, you've lost it all. So I think language is something that we need to also stress upon very, very right from the start building up good language skills. Yeah.
And I think thanks to our friend ChatGPT, language skills are gonna go for a toss. That's already happening. So let's hope kids continue to work on that. Ms. Vandana?
So if you ask me now, already much is covered, so I wouldn't repeat, but yeah, I would give my 1 cent that after all of those things are found out, then at a point, I would like to become a teacher with them instead of a counselor, and then talk about, have you proofread? Have you followed the format? Do you understand your audience who's going to read it? Is it a university person? Is it an internship offer that you are trying to fetch? Or is it some kind of a job that you are applying for? So these are also some of the things that the students must consider, because not every audience is suitable for all the content. Then I would also focus on some of the basics like font size, like number of pages, or maybe number of, especially the spellings, the punctuation, the bullet points, the chronological order, the combination of pictures as well as the information. I think these things are also very important when we mentor the kids, because they do have stories, they do have all activities, achievements, and then rightly pointed out by our colleagues that expression, language, active verbs, these are so important for us. Otherwise, these can actually turn tables and change the game. So this is my 1 cent when it comes to
if I may just add something here, I also, I think as mentors, we also need to sort of tell them that it's very important to build good relationships with your counselors and your teachers, because at the end of it, they're going to be writing your LORs. Sometimes you have students wanting you to write an LOR, but you don't really even know the student well enough, and then so basically they need to build that rapport with their teachers and with the counselor right from the start, so that even we know them as individuals and we can write those, very relevant and very specific details about them in their LOR. So I think they need to work on that as well. There are students who are literally, you don't see them for the whole year, and then they ask for an LOR, and it's like, who are you? So that is something that's very important.
That's very, very important, actually. And also, I don't recommend students to go into teachers they find as favorite teachers. You need to go to the right teachers for your right subjects. Very, very important. I just have last 2 questions for you. And this one is actually just a very simple question. The word unique is very problematic when it comes to profile, because we start chasing that word unique. What's your take on the uniqueness of a profile in the simplest of terms? Ms. Vandana, why don't you start this time?
Sure. So as I began with my, question, the very first question that we spoke about profile versus character. So then I would just say, who are you? Are you a debater? Are you a musician? Are you a guitarist? Are you a philanthropist? Who are you? Build in that and let us see whether your application speaks, your work speaks about it, that you are unique guitarist, you are unique musician, you are a unique debater, you are a unique maybe math wizard. So that's what I would say is unique. It's not unique in, doing everything, checking up all the boxes and feeling that I'm holistic, so I'm unique. Unique is what is very much unique to you. What is your ability? What is your identity? What is it without which you can't define yourself? That's your unique.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bhavya.
So I think the very interesting way, Vandaji, it's very interesting you put it like that. But I agree. In a way, I think unique students tend to chase different activities, something that someone has not already done. And that is what they think is what the college is looking for. But I think when Ramya was talking about the activities, I think I'll go back to that. It is about what you, find which is the best thing for you. It is part of self-exploration as well as how you want to express yourself, who you are basically, and what you identify with. So basically a sum of what Ramya and Vannaji said. It's a combination where you say that, okay, this is who I am. I've tried these things, but these are the 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 things that I love doing, and I would have developed and built on those things. And I cannot, see myself not doing these things, and they are a big part of who I am today. So I think that is unique. It should not be just a chase for something that we think the college is possibly going to like or is going to, set us apart in a, college application. I don't think that is how it should work. And I have seen often quite the best of the students going for that. And, they're almost struggling throughout their school time when they are looking for something like that, because that is the advice they get somewhere, or that's the perception they get from the internet based on their search. But I actually do not believe that that is what the colleges are looking for. It is your own story that matters.
Great. I think, thank you so much. In fact, a lot of students start chasing the word. And also I want to address this, that something that a kid in a tier 3 city is doing and somebody sitting in Delhi or Mumbai is doing, the uniqueness of both the factors is very different because you have more access. So to try and understand that in a very different way. Shraddha?
Yeah, so I think it's just basically about being true to who you are and true to yourself, because, you can't fake things on an application. There's only so much you can fake, I mean, at the end of it, these admissions officers are very experienced and we have to give them credit. They are where they are because of, all their experience and the world of knowledge and, things that they have. So you can't really fool them. You can't put in things that aren't you. So I think the minute you do something that's true to yourself and that's just you as a person, that automatically is going to make your application unique, because no two people are the same. When you bring in your background, your experiences, your childhood's going to be different from someone else. So, in every way, that's anyway going to make you unique. So it's just about, not putting up a mask, just unfiltered, uncensored information about who you are. I think that's just going to make your application unique anyway.
No, perfect. Thank you so much for that input as well, Ramya.
Yeah, I mean, those are all, I don't know what else I can cover, but I will go back to this year. So for it, I'll just tell a little. I had 2 kids who were both absolutely, I mean, they were, honestly, if I had just taken out their personal story, they were identical almost. They participated in the same competitions, done extremely well. They were 2 of my 4 like superstar kids, all A stars, very similar stellar SAT academics, and they were applying to the same universities for economics. Okay. And it was stressful. I was like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And it was a little like sort of game I had with myself or who'd get in where. But I think the single biggest uniqueness there was that the way they told about their motivation, right? Because each one was motivated to study economics for a very different reason. This is what I went back to, like when I always go back to that story, right? Because honestly, like, let's admit it, it's like that saying, right? We're all unique, just like each other. But it's really, I think, you can want to be a programmer because like two kids who have both done, software, a lot of stuff with software, maybe a lot of done stuff with community service or whatever, similar profiles. But in telling of that story, one student might say, I want to be a programmer because I just love the idea of problem solving. I have been a problem solver all my life. And I like the idea of creating something from nothing. I used to be a programmer myself. And for me, it was always like that joy of creating something from nothing. Whereas somebody else may say, I want to be a programmer because I want to use this technology to improve the society around me, to make it a better world, right? And the motivations, neither is right or wrong. There's no judgment, it's not that the kid who wants to use tech to improve society is better than the kid but it just makes them unique in their own way, even when their activities are not that unique. Because let's face it, the universe of activities is not endless. Like there's only a limited amount of access a kid sitting in a tier 1 or tier 2 city in India has access to. And so chances are, if your school offers like X number of activities, like most kids will do at least like 25% of that, right? But I think in telling of the story and really understanding your motivation, I think Shraddha said it very well. Also, seeing where your background is, where you come from, right? I had a student write beautifully about wanting to study policy and politics because her mom was the first person in her family to ever go to school. They came from a very traditional, like Rajasthani, conservative Rajasthani family. And so she talked about the evolution of her grandmother versus her mother versus her, and how, education brought about this empowerment generationally. And so, it's a kid who had done pretty normal, activities and stuff. But I think in telling that story, she brought that uniqueness out.
I think that storytelling somehow conveys and highlights what you've done. Just to your point, Ramya, I think I had a kid from a particular school a couple of years ago. She wants to study psephology, went to Sion-Spo after that. Psephology is a term half people, I did not know till a while back, right? Studying election trends, nobody knows. Why? Because her mother came from a city where women were not allowed to contest in even legislative assembly. And we can assume the city I'm talking about in India. So, right. And she was the first woman who started an initiative around that. And that encouraged her to start this. This can't be made up. So that actually makes it unique. Now, you all have given great points. I don't have more questions to ask. So I would appreciate just the final word of advice, or rather you can take as encouragement, what students can take up to work towards their profile. So just the final word from all of you. Shraddha, I would like you to start.
Yeah, I think students, what I always tell them is make the most of your vacations, because, a lot of them end up whiling away time and then, lose focus during the, that time. It's very, very important to utilize your vacations very productively. I don't mean, you just study all the time. Use this time to intern, to job shadow someone, to do a few courses. Because that's also going to give you that very hands-on experience and an understanding of what that particular profession is. I have students who watch Grey's Anatomy and think that's what it is to be a doctor, or, they watch Suits and they think, okay, that's what law is. But, it's not as glamorous as all of that. So only when you actually work with someone, you use your vacations to sort of, be on the field, is when you will understand, is this the profession that I want to pursue? Of course, you're also developing skills along the way. So I think one tip that I would want to do, give students is to use their vacations very, very productively.
No, I like that point. When the kids tell me I like Harvey Specter, I want to be a lawyer, I tell them go to Peace Hazari in Delhi. You'll realize you want to be a lawyer or not. That'll be a reality check for you. Very, very important. Bhavya, your final word.
So I think I would say something similar. I think the biggest challenge as counselors we see the kids face is lack of focus, and that's as early as 6th standard, 5th standard now, as compared to earlier times. And I think a part of it role is technology, social media, everything, right? So I just believe that extracurriculars profile building is not just to get into a good college, or not just to get to know yourself. It is a very, very important tool to keep yourself sharp, keep your brain working, develop it. Scientific ways, it's been proven. There are papers on it. Lots of psychologists talk about it. So I believe my final word is all the parents, all the counselors need to encourage students to participate and find, more than academics, things that they can effectively do to spend their time productively. That's the keyword from Shraddha. So I think productively spending your time is very, very essential. That ways you tend to be very, very focused, and automatically that sort of affects your ability to perform well academically as well, and maximize your own potential. So yeah, that would be what I would like to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Bhavya. Ramya?
Yeah, I would say, I know we're all doing it for college, but really don't do it for college. Don't do it just for college. Really think of it as, these activities that you do, they build life skills, like, whatever it is, even just the fact that you're juggling 4 things builds a skill, right? Because in real life, when you are, I'm talking to adults, I always do this spiel for kids. So I feel like, but when we talk to kids, when you guys talk to your, clients or students, just that, they have no understanding of what it means to be an adult yet, right? But just give them an example, right? We are all moms here and career women, like juggling 15 different things at any given time. I think doing those things in high school sets you up very well for an increasingly complex world where you have to, learn to juggle multiple things, where you have to constantly upskill, where you have to be able to work across multicultural teams. And so I think it just builds a lot of good life skills. So, just tell the kids, don't do it just for college.
I think that's a very important suggestion because half the universities don't care about profiles, but those skills are very, very important. Ms. Vandana.
In the interest of time, let me be very short.
Hmm.
Wonderful points brought out by all the dear colleagues. Last year's theme for my career department throughout the year was build a life and not a resume. So I would really want everybody to keep to this theme, that build your life and let your life build other lives. And that should be the motive. That's how our nation will progress. That's how we will bring in a healthy nation ahead. So that's my advice to
That's a very good closing statement on a very perfect note. So thank you so much for that. And again, a big thank you from my side. I have learned a lot. I think I have a couple of pages written. So thank you so much. Aishwarya, over to you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists for taking out time for today's panel discussion. It was really helpful for a lot of us to get more insights from you. So thank you once more. With that, thank you, Abhishek, for moderating it. Thank you once again to our lovely panelists. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us. And Abhishek, I think you did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
A lot depends on the moderator. So
absolutely. And thanks, Team Mindler, for having all of us here.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for working with all lovely colleagues here. Thank you so much.
All right, while we are saying goodbye to our lovely panelists, just a quick announcement to the participants who are attending this ICCC program. Tomorrow, please join by 8:30 as you have a very, very amazing session by Chadha sir coming in live. So tomorrow you will be able to see me. So see you, stay tuned, and have a good evening, everybody, once again. Bye-bye.